Hello, everybody. I'm Molly Bartleson. I'm the LICSW at Selkirk Neurology Center of Excellence in partnership with Faylene Hansen and University of Washington. And like the lady said, we're going to talk about staying engaged in your community while living with HD. I'm going to kind of give a foundation, and then Faylene will talk about more ways to stay engaged and active in your community. Because I think what happens is the symptoms that many people with Huntington's disease experience attribute their lack of being active in the community, being, feeling isolated and lonely, and a lot of stigma and a lot of fear. So I'm going to cover the foundation, and she's going to talk about how to work and stay connected to your support systems and in the community. Now I'll let Faylene introduce herself.
Thanks, Molly. I think you did most everything needed. So my name is Faylene Hansen. I'm the social worker at the University of Washington Center of Excellence. And I just some of you came in a little bit late. There's a bucket of lifesavers if you want to grab one, but don't eat one. Don't eat it yet. You may want it later, or have a couple. Looks like there's plenty. All right, Molly.
Thanks. Okay. Yeah, okay. So I think it's important to talk about a triad of symptoms that occurs in Huntington's disease. The first is the cognitive symptoms, the variation of symptoms, cognitive slowing, a lot of, difficulty processing, responding to questions or a conversation that you're having with someone with Huntington's disease. And it makes it very hard to communicate and very frustrating for the person with HD. Memory difficulty, that is significantly a huge issue. Remembering, things that have happened in the day, things that have happened in your life. And, maybe what you've had for breakfast, or maybe something significant. Sometimes that happens, we forget. Difficulty retrieving information, decreased attention and focus, language difficulty expressing our thoughts, our feelings, and being able to continue a conversation that you've started. Reduced mental flexibility, difficulty learning new information. A lot of times it takes repetition, and sometimes that doesn't always give time to learning new things. Sometimes we don't always have the time to give to someone who has Huntington's disease to learn what we're wanting them to hear and process. So it takes longer, and sometimes our time to communicate what we're trying to express is going to take much longer for a person to learn. Challenges with problem solving, multitasking, prioritizing what's important to complete first, safety issues, how do I keep myself safe? What do I do if I have a fire in my home? Those kinds of things. Difficulty with emotional recognition, recognizing our feelings, being able to express our feelings, what it is that I'm actually feeling. Am I angry? What am I angry about? So that's a challenge. It's a challenge to express what you're actually feeling. And sometimes that makes, people who have Huntington's disease very angry because they know they feel a certain way, but they can't get it out. lack of awareness for safety, lack of awareness for others' safety, overall lack of awareness of your environment. The next is motor or movement. Bradykinesia, slow movement. Chorea movement. Involuntary movement. Oh, I did that too fast. Dystonia, contraction muscles, akinesia, freezing, difficulty with speech, oftentimes slurring, being able to continue the thought process and getting the words out completely. There we go, dysphagia, difficulty with speech and swallowing. So a lot of times there's a lot of swallowing issues, so that's very concerning. Risk of falls, poor balance and coordination, difficulty walking, rigidity, muscle movement, tics, facial tics, maybe arm tics, decreased saccades, eye movements. So when the neurologist does the eye movement test with a person with HD, they're not able to follow and complete the task that was requested. So the eye movements are more challenged. And then behavioral. So behavioral, psychiatric, so apathy, depression, impulsivity, a lot of suicidality, suicidal ideation, irritability, agitation, impulsiveness, impaired judgment. Maybe somebody's driving and they shouldn't be. Maybe they're agitated and they're throwing rocks at someone and it could cause damage or harm, you know. Sleep problems, and that was addressed earlier. Depression is huge. And then the aggression, like I mentioned, you know, a lot of people end up driving recklessly or throwing objects or being assaultive because they're not able to control their emotions, understand how they're feeling. They're angry, maybe, but not able to express why they're angry. And then psychosis. So apathy, you know, that is a huge issue with a lot of people with Huntington's disease. And, you know, in general population, when you experience, you know, difficulty with motivation and reduced initiative to do things, you know, take care of yourself, take care of your hygiene. It's just a fact of not caring and not wanting to do anything or not being able to. So loss of interest in social events, so being less engaged, that's a real challenge. Loss of interest in everyday activities, you see these start declining, and more isolation, more irritability, not wanting to participate, not being engaged in the family. That's another significant problem. Emotionally indifferent to what's happening when maybe the rest of the family is going, we have a problem here, we have a problem here. Why aren't you, you know, being part of the solution? Why don't you understand? You're not, you know, doing what's best or safe for you. Don't care either way. Diminished emotional reactivity, showing less affection. I know that's really difficult because we just talked about intimacy. That's how, many people stay connected, is being, intimate and touch. And a lot of times that goes away. Lack of concern for others' feelings or interests. Lack of concern for your feelings or for other people's feelings or their safety. Oftentimes, agitation affects other people that we love because we sometimes become aggressive and assaultive and push back. Decreased interest in the world around us, what's happening, and that affects the safety and the well-being of ourselves, of the person with Huntington's disease, and people around us. And then depression, sadness, feelings of guilt, negative thoughts, I'm a terrible person, can't stand myself, I'm not worthy, self-criticism, hopelessness, anxiety, helplessness, suicidal thoughts. This all can overlap. And we become less physically active, less engaged, less interested in things that we used to do. Psychomotor retardation, visible slowness of thought and movement and speech, and difficulty feeling pleasure. Inertia, lack of energy, that can go along with apathy. I just don't have the energy to do anything today, and that may carry over to the next day. But so how can we make things small and measurable, goals that we can set for the day, so that we can stay active in even the smallest of ways? So I think a lot of this occurs, and it affects the social isolation and the loneliness. And that's really sad because we all want to have relationships. We all want to stay connected. And, that's why we have to work with our families, our providers, and I'll let Faylene address the rest of that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so given that that's, you may or may not experience some or most of those issues, kind of thought about doing a little bit of a social map of like how do we address those things and keep going forward. So in our social worlds, kind of visualize yourself and whether you're someone who has HD or someone who cares for someone with HD, knows someone who has HD. I think this applies to most of us. So in your own world, like what kind of things do you enjoy? Are those things that, some of them are active. Maybe you like to go for walks or runs or read or listen to music. Just kind of do a little self-inventory of what do you personally enjoy? And what do you do to deal with difficulty? So what are those skills, those tasks that you like to do? Are you someone who likes to kind of take a moment and be alone for a bit, or are you someone who likes to go and be more active and do more when you have difficult times? Some ideas are embracing routines for yourself. I know personalities are that some of us really like routines and some of us do not like routines. But as an individual, look at what routines work for you. Are you like getting up at the same time? I do breakfast, just kind of scheduling things that work for your routine. My husband always takes his vitamin when he brushes his teeth because if he doesn't do it then, he'll never remember. So whatever kind of routines work for you. Do things that you enjoy, like kind of fill your own cup. If it's something that you like to do it, assuming that it doesn't harm anybody else. Build connections. So look around, like where do you want to be connected with people, and make those efforts. Forgive yourself. Kind of those pieces that Molly just talked about on that, the two ovals. A lot of the time, we're our worst critic. So recognize for yourself that you're going to make mistakes, I'm going to make mistakes, and forgive yourself for the things that you might criticize yourself for. Be deliberate about being active. A lot of the time when we get, we feel slow, we feel like unmotivated, just be deliberate about it. Whether that's, I'm going to get, a number of steps in an hour, or I'm going to go for a walk. Like, these are the things. I'm just going to make this choice, and I'm going to do this thing and just kind of make sure that I get some activity per day. You don't have to go for a mile-long walk. Just move. Sometimes I have a Fitbit. It reminds me, this is the activity I get for an hour. It's just moving this much. Gets my heart rate just a little bit higher than sitting there, like dozing off, and to make those, just be deliberate about those things. Take care of yourself. Like, what things, back to that, what do you enjoy? What things work? Maybe taking a bath or a hot shower. Just be deliberate again about taking care of yourself. Some of these are things that we're told all the time. Eat healthy, right? You're not going to be eating a perfect diet. You still get your brownie or whatever the things are that that you want. But again, be thoughtful. Choose vegetables, choose fruits, choose maybe not all processed foods. Just make some healthy food choices. Limiting alcohol or other intoxicants. I kind of think when, you already have, if you have Huntington's disease, you already have, your brain is already trying to work really hard to do kind of day-to-day stuff, and to add alcohol or other intoxicants to just make it more difficult. So if you can, you're an adult, you get to make your life choices, but if you can maybe limit what you can, and be thoughtful about it. Sleep hygiene. This is one of those that when I was introduced the concept of sleep hygiene, of, making a routine to go to bed, trying to go to bed, or, normal-ish time, whatever that is, that it definitely keeps your systems working kind of the way that they're intended to be. It doesn't mean you don't get to stay up, if you have something fun to do and you get to stay up late or go to bed early, just kind of hygiene, right? I don't always shower, but most of the time I do. I don't always go to bed at the same time, but most of the time I develop that routine. Get outside if you can, fresh air, sunshine, rain, depending on where you're from. Practice mindfulness. And so this is something that we hear a lot of. And so this was just one of those, so those of you who picked up, grabbed the Lifesaver or the candy, I thought that if you're willing to do this, kind of take that out, and I'm going to offer you the opportunity to mindfully enjoy it. So as grab it and kind of observe your thoughts about what having this Lifesaver will be, and then open it up, kind of observe your experience with, maybe struggling to it, what are your thoughts about having it? Do you have some anticipation around it? And then when you're ready, you can put it on your tongue and experience the flavors, the smells. Just let it sit there for a while, and let yourself experience. Maybe you haven't enjoyed a candy in this way. Notice that maybe your saliva is starting to build up in your mouth a little bit. When do you feel like the need to swallow? Notice kind of the, the sensations of it, like in your sinuses, and just kind of let it melt and just observe it. So, I like to do this with like a chocolate chip a lot of the time because they go quicker. And so, so this is an activity that we can all do. I mean, I've done it with ice. Like if candy is not your thing, it's an activity that kind of lets you, with all of the world kind of spinning around, just to like work on focusing on one thing that that is enjoyable, and or just kind of allows you to center yourself. A lot of the time, it allows you to just kind of like be in a place that's not everywhere else. And then kind of the concept of radical acceptance, to borrow a little bit from, it's DBT from Marsha Linehan's work. The idea is that you're just to accept kind of the today for what it is, and not to like pass judgment on it. I kind of, it sounds very simple, just accept. And it's not so much about rolling over and just, you know, like I just have to do whatever, but it's just, it is what it is. I think in terms of weather, when I think radical acceptance, because I'm yet to meet someone who can control the weather, and even though the media tries to get us all worked up over like Snowmageddon or whatever kind of piece that you have in life about these, and you get kind of all worked up, but at some point, if you can get to the place where it's like the weather is the weather, and then, okay, so maybe I'm going to get snowed in, and how do I manage that? Kind of, and then you're able to kind of get to a place where like you can do the things and go forward rather than be caught up in that frenzy of it's going to snow, what's going to happen, it's going to snow, and we're not going to get to work, and all of that stuff that gets caught up. So kind of thinking in terms of Huntington's disease is getting to the place where it is, if you have Huntington's disease or you have, your loved one has it, we can't really, we can't really do anything today to change that fact. And so it's like getting to that place to go, this is the fact, and then what can I do to go forward? So that's kind of the self-examination piece. And then kind of stepping out in our, actually let me step back for a second. Any thoughts or questions related to that? Yes?
One thing so I'm at risk for ADD, but my grandpa died 5 years ago. I went through like a severe situational depression with it. One of the things that I was struggling with was getting up in the morning. And one of the things that we were talking about embracing the routines, like I would try to get up at the same time every day, but I would find that when I was just relying on myself, I would. And you say embrace the routine, really to do it, because then you're bringing in somebody else who kind of now you're on a shared purpose to get it done.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so it's not, in addition to embracing routine, that's adding that accountability piece that I'm answering to someone who cares about me, someone who I respect to pull me forward. That is a beautiful answer, thank you. So kind of next, thinking about our social map, intimate relationships. And I use the word intimate, like both what you think of as your life partner or your partner of the day, but kind of a little bit broader than that, kind of the people who were close to you. So I have 2 teenage sons. I was talking to my 15-year-old. He's like, yeah, it's the people you live with. And so the people who are like really close and who are there. So ask yourself, who are these people? It could be a partner. It could be a parent. Could be the people you live with. These are the ones that you like. You know who these people are. And then what works in these relationships? I think that there's probably an answer for everybody who would answer it, right? Everybody has their own piece. Some of them is, like they give me space. They have dinner ready. They know when I need someone to pick up the pieces. So looking at your own relationship, what works in those? And what do you want more of? Just identify those things. And recognize relationships change. Like the relationship you have with your people today is not the relationship that you had when they first came into your life. That is the nature of relationships. They won't be the relationship you have probably in a month or in a year. And that's okay. Back to some of that acceptance and just knowing that I'm not the same person I was, you're not the same person you were, and we are going to change. Again, embrace routines with your intimate people, right? Whether that's, Fridays you do, you watch a movie on Friday, or like build some routines, around that. Some of them are natural, like, whether you get up and go to work or whether you go to bed at, the sleep hygiene piece. You can have some routines around some of those natural things. If we have kind of the other piece around routines is if we have predictability, it's easier to manage when things get unpredictable. So if I still have dinner at 6 o'clock, but everything's all chaotic, I know that we're all going to sit down at 6, or whatever those pieces work for you. Build rituals. That's kind of that deeper level from routines in terms of like whether they're celebrations of holidays or recognition of months changing, or like kind of the rituals of life. Do the fun stuff. There's a couple of themes through here. What's the worth of going on if we're not, looking for the fun stuff and making those choices. Plan for the future, whatever that is, financially thinking about vacations or time off or next week. Just make plans for the future. Share your dreams. We all have dreams about what we want to have, what we want to be doing, what we imagine the next phases might be, and share your fears. I think that a lot of the time we get really scared about putting our fears out there, but it does a couple of things. It allows people to know what you're afraid of, kind of in parallel to what your dreams are, but it also just kind of naturally creates more connection. If I know what you're afraid of, I feel closer to you, and if I know that you know what I'm afraid of, I feel closer to you. And fix your mistakes. I think one of the things that, a lot of the time, the thing that harms my relationships more, is the things that I've done wrong and I feel bad about and I don't want to deal with. So if I can make that effort to fix it, then I can move on. And then forgive, because I know the other people in my lives, they also make mistakes. And then, and if I can forgive, I can move on. Thoughts about that level in our social map?
I mean, the standard quote is like the dog is, man's best friend because they love you no matter what. And I think animals are really important, I think it's just very comforting to have an animal that you love and healing, when we're at our worst, we can turn to our favorite pet that we have and take that time, and go, okay, things will be a little bit better because, I have, I don't know, my Saint Bernard with me.
Absolutely, I agree. There's definitely, people's blood pressures go down when they're involved with a furry friend. There's definitely, positive effects for both that four-legged friend and the human, with the caveat that if that's your thing, right? Like not everybody feels connected to animals and pets, and it adds that level of care and a little bit of responsibility of, if my dog wakes me up at 5 o'clock, I'm probably gonna get out of bed and feed my dog or my cat, and that often can drag me back into my routine. So yeah, definitely our furry friends. And then kind of, I think, getting out in nature, that's another place where if you're not someone who wants to care for a pet or feels like that's your place, is going out and watching the squirrels or the birds and stuff can often provide that. Oh, yes.
Plus, when you're out with your dog, random strangers talk.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And it forces you to either, you can choose to interact and have that conversation, or, hopefully you would and not ignore the person, but it's a good interaction because it's making you think, and it's engaging your heart and your emotions, of which we tend to stuff, and if we're not active with other people, we're not engaging and we're not practicing self-care. So that's really important.
Yes.
Does exercise help?
Exercise?
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes. And exercise can be as simple as kind of just making sure that you're moving, or if you're someone who wants to get your heart rate a little bit higher, that's a next level of help. Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kind of the next level in this social map is kind of the close family and friends, kind of that next layer out from the intimate people. You'll notice a couple of themes. Take a little inventory on who are these people in your life, and what works in these relationships. These are often like your friends who might live further away, or aunts and uncles and those kinds of things. And what do you want with more of these people? I embrace routines with these folks. I have a friend that I knew when I was 18, and the first of every month, we lived in different cities, we would call each other. Now we text each other and say rabbit, because it's the first of the month, and we would get the other person's luck for the month. It's kind of a thing, and I don't really know where it came from. Just as an aside, today is the first of the month, and I just got all of your luck for the month of June, so I apologize. But I could always count on the first of the month having an interaction with this friend. Some of them were might be a long phone call, it might be a short text. But for the past, I'm afraid to say how many years it's been, we've talked to each other every month on the first of the month, if not more. And that just kind of continues to kind of carry us forward. And so embracing routines around these relationships. Again, do the fun stuff. If, call each other and say rabbit on the first of the month because it's silly and foolish and it's fun. Accept invitations. I think that this is, kind of taking a position of if someone invites me to do something, my first answer is going to be yes. I mean, unless there's, a reason not to. I have other commitments or those kinds of things. It puts you in a position, kind of like that accountability piece with your friend, is if I'm going to tell myself that I'm going to say yes if someone invites me, then I'm more likely to get out there and continue to be engaged with the greater world. Acknowledge mistakes. So again, we have relationships. We're going to mess up. Like, that's the nature of who humans that we are. Just acknowledge that you are going to mess up. I mess up, and just acknowledge it. And then the flip side of that coin is to let go of your own resentments because other people are going to mess up. That's the nature of things. Questions or thoughts about? Yes.
Since my daughter has a language difficulty now, it helps me to draw her into the conversations. We had a nephew join the family, and he was saying, well, I just want to see the world. Well, she was, like 2 steps behind me trying to get in on something. And I said, well, did you know she went to Europe 3 times? No. I said, how many countries, Megan? 14? She said, 18. But she had to have it direct for her. But I could tell she enjoyed that. But she can't just spontaneously bring up conversation.
No, and that's sometimes what people will do, the support system will do, is direct the conversation to keep the flow and interaction going. And and you can also use like iPads and things like that. If someone cannot speak, you can use that as an adaptive device to help the conversation continue. And that's important too. Noticing, bringing up, maybe they can't initiate, so you initiate for them, and you start a conversation on things that they're interested or things that they've done, because that oftentimes makes people alive, and they interact more, and you get more, and the relationship builds, and that's really important, in staying connected to your loved one, and for them to stay connected to you. So
Sometimes I need those people in my life to bring me back into a conversation when I'm in a social group. So it's not always someone who's got another challenge, but just recognizing that sometimes it's worth engaging someone who's not involved, and sometimes it's the the pace of a conversation, right? It's back and forth. But if you have some difficulty with catching up to conversations and that speed that you didn't used to have someone say, oh yes, you've done that too, and give them that time to say, yes, I have, and be able to go forward from there. Thank you. Okay, so the next level out in our social map, other people in the community, so faith communities, your neighborhood, your schools, your work, your medical providers. And so kind of a little self-inventory, what organizations or groups are you connected to? And what works in these relationships? Sometimes, like a faith community, people get very involved. They might take some leadership positions, or they might be the kind of person who just shows up on the day where the service is, and that is where they have been, where they feel comfortable with. Your local HDSA chapter or the greater HDSA might be in this list. And what do you want more of? Do you feel, are you fed by being in those groups? Are you, And if that works and you want more of,
Support groups, or do you want connections with, friends and like maybe a weekly meetup or a monthly meetup, coffee or going out to dinner or being intentional and setting those times and, those, is that something else that you would like to do?
and make connections where it feels right. So if there's someone who said something and you feel like that is something that you would gain from, introduce yourself and step out a little bit. Maybe push yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone. Again, same kind of thing, accept invitations. A lot of the time in these groups, people might be going to coffee afterwards or going for a walk or something. Kind of take that perspective of, I'm going to accept an invitation if someone asks. You could do the next level up and invite other people if you want to push yourself a little bit. Again, do the fun stuff. There's like I said, there's a couple of themes. Use your support network, do support groups if that's something that you might be interested in. Maybe a support group isn't something that works today, but it may be something that makes sense for you later. Just know that they're available. And make commitments. And this is kind of that piece about asking your, texting your friend or those kinds of pieces. I'm going to commit to do these things. If I say I'm going to do something, I'll show up and do it. And that's kind of the nature of humans. If we commit to something, it's hard to back down. And so make some commitments, to get yourself there. Thoughts about this? Yes.
When my two sons were in a nursing home, the activity director couldn't provide entertainment for everybody 24 hours a day. So I would bring in a Shirley Temple movie and say we're going to have tea in Shirley Temple.
Nice.
Another evening, I got the video straight out of Compton. And all these homeless
That's awesome.
people in Ohio that were in that area, I turn around and they're all just about
Nice.
That's awesome.
And I think I had a children's bowling ball set.
Aw.
And let them, hit that in the hall. It created a community where they all came from different situations, but they had something to say about, oh, you really like that music.
Yep.
Or you're better at cards than I was.
Yep. So they had a shared experience that then they could connect with kind of as beyond that experience. Yep. Thank you.
Nice.
All right. And so kind of the last is everyone else. This is kind of the global world. This one's short. Be forgiving of yourself and others. A lot of the time to go out in the greater world, some of those self-judgment pieces, just forgive yourself for how you look or how you feel like people might judge you, and then forgive others for how they may, how you may perceive the way that they look at you and those kinds of things. Advocate on your behalf, advocate on other people's behalves for things that you think are important. Get active with your local HDSA chapter. Participate in research. So these are all some kind of different levels of things that you can connect with to keep kind of connected and going forward. Yes, you had a...
You rushed. Oh, okay. He's in.
Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Good.
So this is a long list. There's the full list. I kind of challenge you to maybe pick 3 that you could put into your life to go forward with, and just work on challenging yourself to maybe do 1, 2, or 3 on the regular. Text a friend and see if they'll hold you accountable. Any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thanks.